I'm Paul Harding. I'm from Boston, near Boston, Massachusetts. I'm back in Iowa because I'm an alumni of the Iowa Writers Workshop, and I've taught here. And I was in town to give a reading at a medical school conference. In terms of pure writing, I get asked, what is your process? Which is this vast, open-ended question, which is sometimes it's nice to be asked it because I can answer whatever I feel like answering that day. And then in the past year, the big question is always about the Pulitzer Prize that my novel Tinkers won. And there's an interesting backstory to that because it took me a long time to get the book published. And then when it came out on a very small, not-for-profit press at the NYU School of Medicine, the infamous Bellevue Hospital. And so it's just kind of like an interesting, sort of unlikely story behind it that culminated with the Pulitzer Prize win. So people always kind of are curious about that. So. My own brain, you know, I have two young children. I've been doing tons of book touring in the past year, so I have to, and I'm obligated. You know, I'm writing my second novel now, so I have to sort of be able to write anywhere, anytime. I have to be able to just flip open the laptop or pull out the notebook and just be able to drop right into the writing. So the quiet place is a completely internal space, you know, inside my own head. I don't know. I don't know because I've yet to find them. I mean, I've actually been I've been working on my second novel on airplanes. Like I find that I can't sleep on planes. I have a tough time concentrating reading. So I've had these long kind of intercontinental flights where I write the whole time. So, you know, and that can be sort of distracting in some ways, but it's also you know, again, you just end up in your own little headspace. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I never lose my influences. I feel like they just keep kind of accreting over the years, and then my sort of relationship with them kind of aesthetically and intellectually just sort of keeps evolving and changing. So, you know, certainly the New England Transcendentalists, you know, right across the board, Emerson, Thoreau, you know, Hawthorne, Emily Dickinson, all those people. And then in terms of teachers, my teachers from the workshop, definitely Marilynne Robinson. She was, you know, she's sort of the reason I first came here to study, and Elizabeth McCracken. I had the you know, the privilege of sort of having her as a teacher. Absolutely wonderful teacher. And when I was here, I also had there was a guy, an English novelist named Barry Unsworth, who taught here for a year. And that whole first year, my whole first year at the workshop, I took all of my seminars and all of my workshops with Barry Unsworth, which was just kind of an amazing experience. So, and I keep in touch with all those people. So. I have no anxiety about influence. You know, I disagree with Harold Bloom about his anxiety of influence. I delight in my influences. I'm happy to wear them on my sleeve, you know. Part of what's helped me in the past year with this kind of non-stop book tour, that's just the, you know, kind of the natural consequence of the prize, is, you know, for years before I became a writer, I was a musician. And so I'm used to long tours on the road, being on the road, living in hotels, all that, doing lots of interviews and stuff like that. So I just sort of know how to pace myself. Actually, the problem I have is it's not, I don't have a problem charging up, I have a problem charging down. You know, I have a problem sort of gearing back down when I get off the road. When I'm on the road, you just sort of hit this kind of momentum. It's a little bit manic and it's hectic, but it's fun, you know, because you're going places that you've been invited to, and you're talking to people who are interested in art, you know, and so it's just a lovely life to just go from city to city talking to people about books and writing and art. So. Cutting from drafts. No, I mean the trivial little things like one bad preposition construction that I always have to cut is in my first draft I always write off of, and really you're just supposed to write off. That's not very interesting, is it? But I don't, you know, I have little tics like every other writer does, but mostly they're just like little placeholders. If I'm, you know, when I'm trying to get a first draft down, I sort of resort to little kind of, you know, generic little placeholders that I also have to go back and scrub out of the prose. But nothing of really any consequence or substance. Sometimes when Tinkers came out, I received all sorts of mail about lists like that, and some of them were actually very helpful, and some of them were, you know, sort of didactic and not very helpful. But I don't mind, you know, and I'm sort of obsessed about getting the text perfect, you know. So when I first got when they did the first printing of Tinkers, I immediately went through and started changing it, you know, and then they finally let me, you know, they let me. You know, they sort of reset the book or whatever it is that they do, and I think I gave them something like 175 changes, but just minor ones, you know, a semicolon, a comma, change a noun, kind of that sort of thing. So. I suppose there are things. I guess there's something. I'm working on the second novel, and there's a long kind of set piece that I had tried to include in Tinkers, and it ended up not being able to stay in Tinkers because it was all centered on a character who I more or less cut out of the book, and so it was just this kind of interesting extended metaphor that, you know, is one of several that was just sort of head in the file index sort of thing, and I just found a place to put it in the second book. So, I think it's gonna stay in the second book. So. But I mean, I think that, you know, writers do that. They're just kind of always obsessed with these, you know, these sort of images. And you know, I had actually had the experience of, for a while, no matter where I set my stories or my writing or my scenes, for a while, everything that I wrote ended up with a character standing at the top of a hill looking down into something he couldn't quite see that was happening in the trees below him. I have no idea what that means. I don't have any Freudian or Jungian interpretation of it, but it's just strange how, you know, the grooves in your mind just sort of track you right back to the same places all the time, you know. And I've just learned not to, I don't resist it anymore. I just kind of push on through and just sort of see what's in there, you know. Oh, sure there is, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think of, you know, unfortunately, right now, you know, the sort of debates about does the spirit exist in spirituality, you know, it's just these kind of, these just sort of demeaned kind of dehydrated versions of the idea. You know, the spirit of the thing is the intention. It's just, it's not material in the way that time is not material and love is not material. Yeah, I mean, I think of it as, you know, it has to do with consciousness. It has to do with the intention of the piece, the spirit of the piece, the inner life of the work of art and the characters in it. So yeah, I absolutely think of writing as a spiritual thing, definitely. Who is a writer or what is a writer? I don't know. I mean, it's the strangest thing. I mean, I came to writing pretty late. I didn't start trying to write until I was about 30. And so I was just very, very self-conscious for a long time about calling myself a writer. You know, and in a way, it was just sort of, I wasn't quite being coy, but I was just sort of, just slightly uncomfortable with it. You know, so I just sort of had, you know, I would tell people, I write, but I'm not a writer. That's sort of, you know, sort of just the verb, the act of writing. Now I can't quite be so coy. Now I'm much more comfortable saying, yeah, I'm a writer. That's what I do. That's how I. But I don't know, you know, because for me, it's just a way that it's like being a philosopher or a physicist or a researcher. It's just sort of writing is the way that I, you know, I lead an examined life. You know, it's just it's just the medium through which I ponder my own and others' humanity, you know.